Welcome to A Friend of Mine, a series of conversations with some incredible and inspiring women in business from regional and rural Australia. I'm Kimberly Finesse, your host and the founder and editor of Oak Magazine, and I cannot wait to introduce you to some amazing female entrepreneurs who will share with you their experience and knowledge of what it takes to start, grow and scale a successful business. So let me introduce you to a friend of mine. Michelle Rossiter is reluctant to call herself an entrepreneur, but when you look back at her business journey, she has a knack of seeing a gap, filling it, and doing so with great success. Michelle left school at 15 to become an apprentice hairdresser. At 21, she set out to travel around Australia, practicing her hairdressing skills along the way. It wasn't until the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, that Michelle felt a strong desire to return home and be near family. She soon relocated to Tumut, where her sister was living. It was in Tumut that Michelle's entrepreneurial spirit was sparked. Recognising a lack of eateries in her hometown, Michelle took the initiative to establish a cafe and successfully launched the Coach House. Although the cafe has changed ownership over time, it continues to flourish. Not stopping there, Michelle ventured into additional entrepreneurial pursuits, founding another cafe and operating a mobile coffee and pancake van. However, wanting a job that was less labour intensive, Michelle decided to pursue her passion for outdoor riding. This led to opening Ground Up in 2017. Ground Up stock a full range of bikes that cater for all needs, from seasoned professionals to beginners. The business outgrew its first store and is now the largest bike store in the New South Wales Snowy Valleys region. In this episode, Michelle shares her business journey, along with the challenges of running a retail business, the importance of a strong online presence, and the impact of the pandemic on the bike industry. The mum of three also talks about balancing work and family commitments. Meet my friend Michelle from Ground Up. Hello, Michelle, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's such a small world, isn't it?
It is.
Yes, we have just discovered that we're both from Bendigo.
I know. It's, good old Benders.
Yeah. And here I am in Tumut, about 5 or 6 hours away from home, and I find a local.
I know. Grew up, spent a lot of my childhood in Bendigo. Went to school in Bendigo, did my hairdressing apprenticeship in Bendigo. Yeah, so I've got some beautiful friends still there that I catch up with.
Well, why don't we start there? You just mentioned hairdressing apprenticeship. We're in your beautiful, big, amazing bike store. My second born would just be losing himself at the moment in here.
Yes.
How do you go from hairdressing to bikes?
I know. I actually do ask myself that quite often. And even my kids, even just chatting, because I've got a 19-year-old now, 17, and a 10-year-old, and just going back, trying to teach my 19-year-old, about jobs and that sort of thing. And, as I was saying to you briefly before about choosing, you don't have to choose a job for that long, because I was a hairdresser to start with, and then I went into cafes and now a bike shop. So don't be so hung up on, jobs. So yes, I did. I started as a hairdresser in Bendigo when I was 15 to Flora Hill. Hi. Hello to all my Flora Hill friends. And then I spent probably 15 years in Bendigo there doing my apprenticeship, and so.
What attracted you to hairdressing?
I actually did a work placement in
work
year
experience,
10, and I actually got, Sue Pierce was actually, she used to have a hair salon called Talking Heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she offered me an apprenticeship. I left school and I said, Mum, I'm leaving. And I probably didn't like school that much, but in the time, I think when I grew up, there wasn't a lot of apprenticeships being offered. So Mum sort of said, well, it's a good trade, and maybe she thought she got free hairdos.
Yeah,
I don't know. And she did. We used her quite a bit. So it's made me the person I am today. And the hairdressing industry was really different back then to what it is today. So
It would be. How did your mum feel about you leaving school so early? Was mum worried or?
Maybe. I think that's probably a good question for Mum. I don't know if I've ever really asked her. Mum was actually a single mum, like had two girls. I've got a sister that actually lives in Tumut as well, which was one of the reasons why I moved here. You know, and apprenticeships probably weren't around a lot. So, but now I think there's so much more opportunity for our children today. I just think they could do whatever they want.
They can, can't
And they don't
they?
have to do it for, you know.
And that's the thing, it's not a career. So once they finish the VCE or HSC here in New South Wales, it's not about, you know, picking that one thing that you're going to see through your whole career now.
Absolutely.
They're having those micro careers in there, which seems to be, I want to say it's more acceptable, because it wasn't looked at as acceptable to keep swapping jobs all the time. But
No.
I just look back and think, you know, even I've moved around, you know, from, I suppose, journalism to beauty therapy to comms marketing to lots of little jobs in between. And every one of those have taught me something that I'm able to apply to what I do today. So, you know, you haven't made the jump from hairdressing to bike shops though. There's this massive part in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Husband, children, mum.
Yep.
Cafe.
Cafes. How did you get into cafes from hairdressing?
Well, I think actually it probably stemmed from my mother and grandmother back, you know, being a child. Nana grew up on a farm, so they were very big into farming, and I remember they were on a farm in Ararat, so that was sort of my mum's hometown. So we used to go back there quite often through the school holidays and help out with the shearing. So, and I always remember Nana was just in the kitchen. That's actually how I remember Nana. Like from the moment she got up in the morning, she'd have, you know, cooked breakfast for my pa, and pa would go out into the fields and, you know, or do whatever he did with cattle and sheep and that. And then she'd clean up from breakfast, and then she'd have lunch on the table, or morning tea. They'd come in and she'd have biscuits and, you know, cheese, and, you know, she'd have cuppers and then she'd clean up from that, and I guess she'd have lunch, and, you know, it might have only been just some sandwiches or something like that, but, you know, it was always set by a time.
Oh, and the times, yes.
Yeah, so I just always remember, and even though we were outside playing and doing all that stuff, but I do remember always Nana just being in the kitchen. And probably didn't have dishwashers like they do today, and that. So everything was just done in this little old sink, and, you know, that. So getting back to that, seeing my Nana was always a beautiful cook, and she always had these recipe tins, and I remember going there and, you know, she'd go, oh, what are we going to make today? And, you know, you'd go and have a look at a recipe, and you'd pull out, and, you know, she'd make something, and everything was by scratch. And then my mother, she was always a beautiful cook. And I guess when we moved to Bendigo after my parents had a marriage breakdown, that was sort of one thing she thought that she might like to get back into. So when we were in sort of high school and that sort of thing. And so Mum went and did a cooking course, like at the TAFE in Bendigo, when I remember going there, and we actually went there for dinner, and, you know, it was like what they'd learnt all through the term, and you actually went there and, you know, it was all like sit down, and it was like very la-di-da. And I remember my mum just being so proud, because she probably was a stay-at-home mum like all that time from when we were kids, and just seeing her, you know, probably do something for herself, I guess, was a really big thing for her. And then her joy of cooking and that sort of thing. So I think that's kind of where it's all stemmed from. My sister's a beautiful cook. So, yeah, we kind of just maybe got it handed down to
you.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My nan was like that CWA. She had a folder with blue wool, you know, that done it up in her beautiful old school handwriting. But, yeah, it skipped so many generations after that. Oh, Jesus. No.
I'm sure it's probably back in there somewhere.
Oh, I can do a pav and scones. I don't know how.
That's hard.
I know. They're the only two things,
They
though.
are hard.
Yeah. I burnt pasta on the first sort of night I met my husband. And he'd sort of said then, you know, I was never going to marry you for your cooking skills. So he does all the cooking. I'm so very, very lucky.
You are.
And it was not intentional. But yeah, so you bought a cafe then, or worked in one first?
When I moved, I did a bit of hairdressing for a while. Decided to go around Australia. So that was kind of what I did after my 21st. And we sort of started to jot our way up the coast and worked in Airlie Beach and worked on South Mole Island as a hairdresser and weddings. We did a lot of weddings and that sort of thing. And then I moved to Port Douglas. So I was there for a couple of years. And just worked in a few salons. One salon there, but then I decided that I was sort of on the cusp of probably not really wanting to do hairdressing. I think I sort of decided that might have been it for me. But the great thing about Port Douglas was there was a lot of movie sets up there, a lot of movies. So we end up, we'd go out and do the hair for the movie sets and met some amazing people. It was actually just before September the 11th. I remember talking to my little niece, and she was, all of probably 5 or 6, and I remember ringing her for her birthday, and I remember speaking to her one day on the phone, and I said, "Oh, darling, what do you want for your birthday?" And she said, "Auntie Shell, I'd really love for you to come home." And I was just like, oh my God, I've been away far too long. And because my family was all back in Victoria still. And then September 11th happened, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like it just rocked the world. And I just went, what am I doing here? I've got to be closer to family. So I decided to pack up and come back. And I just decided to start a little cafe because there were so many beautiful eateries in Port Douglas. I think I remember I counted one time there was like 52 eateries in Port Douglas, and they were all amazing, all beautiful. And then I come to this little place called Tumut, and it was like there was one cafe. So I was like, how am I going to cope? And my sister actually had seen this little place called the Coach House, which was the original coach house to the bank of the NAB. So it's still there today, and it's actually still called the Coach House Cafe. And she had actually said, oh, there's this it's like an old stable. So it's where they used to have all the horses. And I met Hansy. Hansy's an icon in Tumut. She's such a beautiful lady, her and her husband, Gary. They kind of took me under their wing, and they gave me a place to stay, and, we started up this cafe, and it was just wonderful. It was really great. And it's, as I said, it's changed hands a few times now, but it's still called the Coach House. So,
wow.
It's really good.
Yeah, an institution for Tumut that you've had a hand in.
Yeah, I have.
Do you think about that way?
No, probably not. No, and I sometimes ask myself that question because I don't know whether I just get sick of one thing or I'm, and then have to challenge myself. I just always looking for that challenge, or whether I'm just silly and just because I remember when I told my husband I'm starting up a bike shop, and he said, "Well, you can do that on your own." I went, "Oh, okay." But we don't have a bike shop in Tumut.
So there was no bike shop here before Ground Up?
No, we had a little cyclery in the Toy World shop here in town. The owner was a big cycler in the day, and I think his wife may have done the toys, and he kind of had like a little cyclery in there. That was all we had. Yeah. So that was well before the pandemic. And then when I started up my second cafe down by the race course, I did have a coffee van as well that I used to take down there because a few people from Rotary had messaged me one day and said, look, I think this is a great spot. Do you want to come down and see? There wasn't a cafe or anything down there initially. So when I had the little coffee van, it was when my children were quite little. So we decided to go down there. We did pancakes and coffees on a Saturday, Sunday, and it was just so busy. So I'd be making pancake batter at home, and I'd be like, in this little van flipping, and cooking pancakes. And So we decided to do a little cafe down there. So that was, how that started as well. So it's been great.
When you said before, you're like, oh, I just must be crazy. I don't like to stay in one thing. I like to do, move on to something else. I actually think that it's probably that entrepreneurship in you, wanting to, like, seeing a gap in the market, filling it. Because your coffee van was way before.
Way before coffee vans.
Where they're on every corner now. And look, I'm someone with a dream of a cafe van.
Oh, wow, really?
If my podcast van doesn't work out, I'm desperate to have one.
Great.
But also when you talk about the coach house as well and, the cafes, like you came here, you saw there was a gap in the market and you filled it. Rotary are like, there's no coffee or whatever. You see a gap. You can't build anything down there, so take the building with you. Like, you're very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, well, maybe when you put it like that, I've never really, you hear that name entrepreneur all the time. And, I kind of just did it. I did it, and I probably thought about it later, and I went, oh, gee, that was probably a really big move there,
Yeah.
Even going back to that bike shop thing, like when my husband said, bikes, like what, and my love of bikes, because I'll take you back to where I grew up in Bendigo again, and we had horses. So we had a little farm, and my mum and dad, that's what they did. We bred horses. So every weekend we'd go around to horse shows. So that was our holiday, really. That's all we did. And I loved horses, but I didn't love them. They had a mind of their own. So I was like, and I was probably a little bit maybe scared of them or something.
I was going to say, they actually scare me.
Yeah, there was something about them, whereas my sister is such a great horsewoman, and she still,
it's like a whisperer.
She still has horses now, and she lives on a farm and that, whereas I always had my bike, and I just had my bike everywhere with me. So I'd be off with the boys and Mum would be trying to look for me and go, you're on in 5 minutes. And I'd be like, oh, but I'm just out the back and, playing with the boys. So I guess from that, that was probably my love of bikes, where that come from. So I think it's really come around sort of that full cycle of really wanting to put the cafe with bikes, but I knew when I had that cafe down there, it wasn't going to work for whatever reason. Like, it was just, and I needed to go into retail. And then I think I realised it's very hard. Food is very laborious, and I've come from hairdressing, which is very laborious. You do long hours. Then I went into cooking, and then cooking was very laborious. So I just wanted something that you could leave at the end of the night and lock up and then come back tomorrow. So that was kind of when I thought, well, maybe bikes could work. And we're in and actually Tumut is an amazing area for riding. Like, we're very outdoorsy people. That's what we do. We've got the most amazing dams here. We've got, we're starting to get a few different things like, rail trails, but up in the high country, we've got, the bushwalking and all that sort of stuff. So we are outdoors, and we love our outdoors here, and that's maybe where it's come from.
Yeah.
Maybe.
How did you find starting a bike shop versus the cafes? Was it similar? Do you use the same business skills, the same business plan, all of that sort of stuff? It was very different being retail versus hospitality.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I have been asked that before, and for me, I never really had a business plan. I've never had a business plan, and I don't know how many people you talk to.
There's not
that
a lot
would say that they've,
yes.
Because when people, I started out with not much money in all my businesses, and this is what I try and say to my kids. Like, I think initially when I had my bike shop, I had like $40,000, and that's how I started my bike shop. But everything just went back into that shop. Like, so I probably, and my husband has got another good paying job. So it kind of allowed me to dabble a little bit, and look, it is tough, and it was tough. But everything just kept going back into what we have today and what you see today. So I always tell people, you can start off with not much. And as long as I made rent every week, that was all I worried about.
Well, that's the thing, to find what your non-negotiables are and go, okay, well, there's, $1,200 non-negotiable every month, and it'd be more than that if you have obviously a retail store where you're paying rent.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
just going, okay, well, how do I make that? And then anything from that is a bonus, and you obviously get bigger and bigger, because where we are today, it's big. Like, as you said, I'm from Bendigo. We're a massive bike community, really big, actually.
It is.
I have a massive crush on Peter Mullins. I don't know, I doubt she'd ever listen to my podcast, but I have a massive crush on her. So, I love bikes. We've got really big stores, but even this as a store is huge.
And we do get a lot of comments when people sort of come to us and they go, wow, I wasn't expecting this. So,
how does that feel? Like, is that a good,
Oh, absolutely.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. It's one, and I think that's all you need to hear to know that you're successful, because, when people just sort of see that, that's when they're like, oh, wow, or you've got such a great range, or I didn't know you actually did women's clothing in bikes, because not a lot of bike shops actually have women's specific clothing as well. They fit very much for one specific, like, we have back in Bendigo it's probably a bit more road based. That was how I sort of grew up with. Now it's very casual now with the mountain biking, and it's a little bit diverse, but you sort of got to have a little bit of both anyway. So
I've got two questions. I don't know which way to go to how it's going to run. I think I first want to just hit pause and go, what's your definition of success? Because you just said when someone walks in and they're like, wow, I didn't realize it was this big. You're like, that's, for you, it's successful. What's your definition of success? Is it the money in the till at the end of the day, or?
No, I don't even know if I've really asked myself that. I actually love what I do. I love talking to people. I think, and that's probably stemmed from my hairdressing days. Like, I think if I did something else, like I quite often go, oh, wow, could I work in an office? I'm like, oh, no.
I don't even know you that well. I'm like, no.
I couldn't work in an office, could I? Like,
You'd
I'd be a waste. I'd be a waste.
Everyone would, no one would get any work done. No. But we'd all have such a good time.
Yeah, I do like to talk. I am a good listener too, though.
Yeah,
like,
you have to be. That's the hairdressing. They're coming in for a therapy session at some point, and
definitely
you've got to listen. And even with their cut and colour, you are listening. You are interpreting what they're saying into obviously what you're cutting and colouring, and hoping there's some. We're on the same wavelength.
When you say success, I still don't know if I'm successful.
Really?
Yeah,
you are.
Yeah,
you've had cafes that have been successful. You've started, and probably what I was going with it before was that it is big, but this isn't where you started. You started in a smaller store. So already by definition of success, it is successful because it's grown. Yeah. So you are.
When you put it like that.
Yeah, just carry me around in your pocket. I'm just a wonderful little cheerleader.
Yeah, no, but I absolutely love what I do, and I love our town, and I love our region. Yeah, so that makes me a big advocate for, I want you to come and enjoy what we have, and when people come, obviously they're bike riders because they come to a bike shop, but they want to know what's in our region. Yeah, like we've got Tumbarumba, that's just has the first rail trail for New South Wales. So that's taken, like, it was amazing that Tumba got that, but we need more. Our region, as we were talking before, Victoria have so
more.
Many, and I remember going from Bendigo to my grandmother's house in Ararat, all those little towns in between, like they died off many years ago. But all these rail trails come through, and they're amazing now. Like, they're beautiful little bookeries and cafes and little artist shops, and they're just beautiful. Like, you actually want to stop there and actually go for a bike ride. I think people have sort of come back. They've left and now they're back. And I can see in our region here, like Batlow was a very big town in its day. It was probably, I think it was bigger than Tumut. Like it had a mountain-made cannery, and that was where all of your apples and stone fruits and all that come from. And yeah, and it died off like for a long time, but it's slow. Like it's certainly not back up there, but it's just on that cusp of, maybe with Tumba, there's Tumba, Batlow, and then Tumut, and then Gundagai. So it's slowly sort of getting there, but we need people to come and visit and,
Absolutely.
But we need things to do for those people as well. So there's a couple of really nice little, the Apple Thief, which is a cider, and they have Batlow Cider Festival. That's been a great thing for our region. I think maybe 10 years or something like that. Like it's been a long time, but they didn't run it through COVID. But then, so they get thousands of people rocking up in little old Batlow. So, which just puts, such a boost in our town and our region as well. So,
and speaking of COVID and the pandemic, bikes, I mean, if you didn't have one, you got one. So you started your business just before, the pandemic. And I mean, it would have given it that massive boost. How have you coped through those few years?
When the pandemic hit, you couldn't get bikes. So everyone was either doing their bikes up. Like we were considered essential. So, if you could either walk or you could ride your bike for an hour, that was basically it. So lots of people, if we didn't have a bike, well, we just couldn't, we'd have to fix your bike. So we had a little bike rack out the front. We had a table at the door. So we had, people could either ring up, book their bike in, and they would put their bike in a little rack, and we would bring it in. We'd have to disinfect it all and service it, and then we would either ring them up or send them a message, and we'd have their bike back out the front for them. That was kind of how it was for, and I guess in that time, like my husband, he runs a bowling club, so he's the CEO of a bowling club. So that actually had to shut down. So he was actually out of a job, so he couldn't work. But then the bike shop just exploded, and he was virtually in there full time, so fixing bikes.
And how do you go working together?
Yeah, not bad. He's out the back and I'm out the front.
Clearly defined roles.
Yeah, we know where we stand. Yeah, definitely.
I don't know too many bike shops that have, a female founder right at the front. That's pretty incredible too.
Yeah, actually a few people do say that, like it's generally a male.
It is.
Yeah, so I just
love bikes.
Yeah, I do.
In terms of business, what's the hardest thing for you? Is it the back of office or the marketing or any part of it at all?
Definitely, I would have to say marketing is probably, I think, just with the way everything's going, social media, having a presence online, all the TikToks, like, oh gosh, my children, trying to... we do actually have a TikTok for the shop, but I'm barred off it. So they don't let me near it.
Yeah.
So I find that a little bit probably daunting for me, is doing all the content and making things look good. My son actually is into like photography and that, so he's helped us out a bit. There's another local girl, Roz. She's got a photography business who I'm very fond of her. She actually worked for me when she was just starting out and moved to Tumut. So she's actually done our website. If you get on our website and have a look at that. So we try and use sort of all local, things. And I think paying for that sort of stuff, you really, as a business, it's, you really need to do now, because it's the way everyone just Googles, like if they come to town, like best coffee in town, you just ask Google and best bike shop in town, where's the bike shop? So you've really got to be a presence with the social media as well. But that's probably one thing that I'm not, but I guess it's having the people around you that can help you as well, and, you know, not be afraid of it. But
No, and I think that's don't be afraid of it. Like, you can't break it. But there's always, I think there's so many free courses anyway, but investing, you know, in someone, in a mentor, and, you know, getting those skill sets to get up and, you know, and as you said, I mean, I use Instagram to punch in hashtag Tumut coffee. Like, that's how I'll find where there's a coffee shop.
So you can do that?
Yes, yeah. So with
is that when you do your hashtag?
Yes, we're going to talk.
Oh
my gosh, we need to talk after this. But yeah, like, so people use, I suppose, Instagram like their Google, and it's got such a great keyword search at the moment. So even if you had Tumut Bike Store in your caption, in your profile name, or even your hashtags, it all comes up. So yeah, it's really, those keywords are just so important.
I've always wondered why you have to hashtag everything, and you know, is there an easier way to just cut and paste all those?
Save them onto the notes section on your phone if you've got an iPhone, or I use Planoly. That's how I schedule everything. And there's hashtag sets that you can save in there.
I'm just like, I know, I'm in awe. I'm like, I want to know more.
You have to do a little sesh, but sometimes it's just those. But they're the basic things, and I know they're not for everyone, but sometimes it's just those base level, you know, little things we can do to get our content to be seen, because, I mean, there's a lot out there, isn't it? It's needing to be seen, but are you still the only bike store in Tumut?
Yeah, so there is another bike shop, Ian Downing. He's from Bike Revive. He is an amazing mechanic. He moved over. I think it was just after the pandemic. And so he's in town, but he doesn't really do a lot of retail. So we sort of work off one another, and so it's great. I love him. Yeah, so he quite often comes and has a coffee with me some days. And his family's still in Canberra. And so he's here on his own, and we're like his second home. So beautiful. Yeah, he is.
Do you mentor people at all? Other business women?
No, but I'm always in for a chat.
Informal mentoring.
If anyone come and, you know, I've quite often, there's a little group here that has started out, and quite often I've been asked to do things, but I've kind of just been really busy, and I guess I just go, I'd love to, but then, you know, I don't sort of pursue it. But I do love talking to people, and I love seeing people succeed, and maybe if, you know, it gave them a little bit more of an encouragement to maybe try and do something, because you can do whatever you want to do.
Is this your forever, the bike store, or do you see another business in you?
That's a good question too. I don't know. I'm not sick of it yet.
That's a good thing.
I'm not sick of it yet. I think it's a really great job for a family, like for us, so probably our next step in life, we can retire, and maybe our sons, or, you know, may take it on, or I don't know. I haven't asked them.
Yeah.
You know, they may turn around and go, "Nah, Mum, that's your thing," and, you know, so I don't know. Yeah.
And you'd mentioned you had been at a basketball tournament, just in an email, and I know what that's like to be away from home. They're all weekend, those things.
Yes.
You know, and your whole focus is on that child that you're with at that tournament. How do you blend work and family, especially when you've got the older children? I think they're really busy. They're busy humans that have social lives.
That's a real juggle. My eldest boy, he actually lives at home. He's just finished year 12 last year. So it's been a really difficult time for him, because he went through that 10 and 11 through COVID. Wanted to finish year 12. He decided that's, you know, so just went to the high school up here. It was good, but he really struggled, I think, with year 12. I think he probably didn't have all the tools and maybe the teachers to help. It was just sort of, you should know how to study, so you need to probably just go and study. Like, here's all the stuff to study. You need to just go and do that. So he did pass, and that was just our whole concept. Just do your best, darling. Like, just be there, do it, complete it, and it doesn't matter. Like, no one's going to sit there and go, oh, what did you get in your HSC? Like, at the end of the day, it's not a question that would ever enter my mind to ask someone. People forget about it. And I think, don't put so much stress on, your score or whatever, because,
there's so many other pathways.
Into
that's uni.
And I think they do realise that. And I think because even after I'd spoke to Aidan, he said, look, I don't know if I want to go to uni, Mum, but I can do it this way, or, go, well, I didn't know you could do it that way. So, they kind of do know their pathways. So he's just kind of doing a gap year at the moment. So he just really wanted to have a bit of time out, working in the bike shop, that sort of thing, and having a nice 12 months off. And my middle boy goes to school up in Sydney. So he's chasing his dream of being a sports person. He's always been one of those kids that has made representative basketball, representative cricket, rugby league. So we have done it all, travelling with him all over as well. So, and that now my 10-year-old daughter, she loves basketball. So it is a real juggle.
Yep. And it's just a team here that helps, obviously, to back you up.
It's actually Tumut has the Tumut Timberwolves, and our little 12-year-old girls made the state cup and came second. And it's amazing what we can produce out of these little country towns and the sports kids that do, they love their sport.
Yeah. And what it builds in those kids as well.
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
Pretty special humans.
We do a lot of travelling.
Yes, racking up the Ks. Just my last question is, and you have name dropped Roz a lot, I know, so I'm hoping you have another one up your sleeve, but tell me about a friend of yours that we need to know about.
Well, I was telling you earlier about Catherine Ann, a really good, we bounce off one another. Catherine's been in business over 20 years in the beauty industry, so I just take my hat off to her. She's done amazing, grown up here in Tumut, and she has Alabache, Catherine Ann's Beauty Therapy. So she's put a lot of girls through their traineeship and apprenticeships through the beauty industry. She's probably one of my favourite. But look, there's so many. Like Tumut, like we do. We have a lot. We have a lot in Tumut. Yeah, as I mentioned, Roz. I go to the gym a couple of times a week. Jess Buckman from The Gym. She does amazing stuff. We're everywhere.
There is no shortage of stories.
Absolutely not. But that's just off the top of my head. But if I really did think about it, I could probably get a couple more for you.
I'm sure you could. I want to say thank you for inviting me here to Tumut, and I'm actually, when you talk about how many businesses you've had, where you've come through, that customer service is obviously your superpower, and being able to connect with a customer. And to be honest, I can see it in your son actually.
Aiden,
look, 19, but really personable and able to hold a conversation.
Yeah.
And just the little things like saying goodbye, nice to meet you. You're raising such great kids,
Thank you. That's beautiful.
It's just nice, so nice to see and to feel welcome.
The country kids too, I think. There's so many beautiful kids in this town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being a guest on the podcast, and can't wait to go out and have a look at some bikes and share some photos back to the second born and show him where I am. And with the bikes, people can buy them online.
Pretty much we don't, we're a Trek store, so we have, so you can actually look up any of Trek bikes and it will tell you sort of what we've got in store, but we don't have like a live run stock. It's sort of, I'd probably need another manager to come in and sort of, do that every day. So, but definitely, call in, drop in, shoot me a message.
If you're in the region with your bike, come in and have a chat. And
absolutely. Or even just have a chat.
Yeah. Get it serviced, have a chat. Thank you. Now, before you take off with all that inspiration and knowledge, we'd love for you to leave a review on our podcast so that we can continue to amplify women's voices in the media. And if you have any questions or you'd like to celebrate a win, you can always connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Oak Magazine AU. I'm so glad we've met and that now you know a friend of mine.